Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for this intro webinar to Cablecast 6.4. We're very excited about this release, and actually we are holding this webinar on the official release day. So for those of you who are under warranty or have your assurance up to date, you can get this software now. We were showing it at NAB a few weeks ago, and people were really excited. So we're really excited to share it with you today as well. A lot of you are covering a lot of meetings in which some of these features will be very helpful in saving you time and potentially money if you're currently using another service to fill some of these needs. And also for those of you who are doing sports, I think you're going to like some of the added VOD features that we have now as well. So we're going to have Ryan today from our training department giving you a complete demo of the newly added features in 6.4. And we're going to go ahead and let him get through all of the presentation, and then we'll take questions. But as you have questions, please feel free to use the question box. Go ahead and put them in as you think of them, and then they'll be in there in order for us to address after the presentation. We are also recording this presentation, so we'll be sending you a copy of the recording after it's complete. And also, if you had other people that registered and weren't able to make it, they'll be receiving a recording of this as well. Steve, did you have anything else to add before we get started?
No, not really, not much at all. Just to say that we're pretty excited about this release and actually about everything that we've gotten done in the first part of the year. We hope you enjoy all the new features and functionality that we're rolling out, and look forward to your feedback. So with that, Ryan, it's all to you.
All right, thank you, Steve and Michelle. So like Michelle stated, my name's Ryan Hickok. I am the Cablecast trainer here for Tightrope Media Systems and Cablecast specifically. So probably some of you I've worked with in the past or potentially might be working with you guys in the future. So we're going to be talking about some of the new features in Cablecast 6.4. So it's our new release, and like Michelle said, today is the actual release day. So when we get done with this, those of you that do have the software assurance, and we'll talk a little bit about updating and things like that near the end, that we will push those out. You'll be able to reach out to our support staff, and they are all set and ready to kind of set up and get you guys all ready to update to Cablecast 6.4. One of the things that I want to touch base with before we actually show some of the features is what you're seeing right now on the screen is our newly updated Cablecast website. So just right before NAB, we launched our new websites. And what we did with those is we did a complete redesign, and we have them catered specifically to our product. So this is the specific Cablecast website. And the new URL is cablecast.tv, as you can see across in the user menu there. Excuse me. But with this, it's specifically catered to Cablecast. So it's got a lot of our information in here. We've got a lot of great features in here, some of our solutions of talking about the actual products that we provide. We also have a nice integrated help center with our documentation for information, release notes, manuals, server formats, documents, things like that. Also, all of our tech support information, if you want to reach out to our support staff or see any of our knowledge base articles or anything like that, you can submit a ticket just like before, right from our website. We also have all of our tutorial videos, which you'll recognize probably the voice that's on those. If you guys want to listen to a Minnesota accent for a while again, you can watch any of those videos and be able to get some information about some of the different topics that we have specifically on Cablecast. But this is our new website, so cablecast.tv. If you do type in our old website, which is trms.com, it's going to take you to a landing page that's going to cater you directly to what specific product you want to go to, whether it's the cable carousel digital signage product, and it's got information in there with tutorial videos as well as some documentation, user manuals, things like that. But specifically, if you're talking about Cablecast, you'll be going to take me to Cablecast, and that'll take you to the new cablecast.tv website. So that's something that we're really excited about. It's still fairly new website, so there are some things that might be a little weird. If you do find something that's a little off on the website, just mention it to us and we can get that fixed for the future on there. So now the point that everybody has been kind of sitting here for is our Cablecast 6.4 features. So there's basically three new features that we're going to be talking about with the release of Cablecast 6.4. I'll touch base on each one of these and then we'll kind of go in and actually show them to you. So some of the things that we have added into Cablecast 6.4 is our captioning support, so closed captioning support. We've already been doing closed captioning support for broadcast out to your channels, but now we've actually improved that so that it is available with your video on demand files as well as your live streaming. That we have closed captioning integration in there, especially with a lot of the legality stuff that's going on right now with captioning and having that. We've integrated that into our software right now, and we'll show that. The other things that we're going to be talking about is our improved custom fields and some of the integration that we can do with those now, as well as we have a live chaptering feature now with our live and VOD functionality if you do have VOD with your system, and we'll talk about that a little bit. And then we're also going to talk a little bit about some of the updates. With the 6.4 update, there is going to be some things that need to be taken place, especially if you have your live servers and your live streamers. And we'll touch base a little bit about that before we are done. Again, like Michelle said, if you have any questions, feel free to ask those in the question section in your GoToMeeting or GoToWebinar panel there, and we'll try to answer as many of those questions as we can at the end of the presentation. So without further ado, let's talk about our captioning support. So like we said, captioning has already been supported in Cablecast, where we can actually support VOD, or actually captioning, CEA 608 and 708 captions that are embedded into our digital files that you put on your server, and those are already supported for broadcast. But what we've added is the ability to add those into video on demand and live streaming. So for example, let's just take a look at one of our show records that has captioning on it. And here we've got like a Democracy Now! That has captionings in it. We've just enabled that for ourselves in there. So if the file already has the embedded captions into it, they will pass throughout to your broadcast as well as pass through to your live and your VOD. So to be able to see how that is integrated on a VOD, we're just going to click on one of our player windows here. And say that we need to change. We can actually look at what our VOD looks like. So let's go and buffer up to further in. On all of your player windows now, here, I'll pause that for a second. You're going to have a little closed captioning icon there where you're going to be able to turn off your closed captions as well as turn them on by picking the language that you want to choose. And it's going to be right there in your player window for the actual integrated captioning. You can also go to your captioning settings. So the viewer themselves, if they want to adjust this, if they want to change font size or colors or anything like that, they'll be able to make those adjustments as well for their own viewing purposes under those captioning settings. And those are right in the actual captioning window. So this will be integrated right in the player window for VOD files, as well as your live stream as well. So if you do have captioning embedded into your live stream, it will also play in there. Now, one thing I do want to note with this is we support captioning if it is embedded into the digital file. This is not a captioning solution where we are not being the ones that are actually putting in the captionings. So you need to actually have the file, or if it's a live stream, you're actually embedding those or the captioning details into that stream. That usually takes part with a third-party product or something like that, but we just want to make sure that this isn't a captioning solution for you, so it's not going to be adding in the captioning, but if your files or your transport stream or whatever it may be actually has the captioning data in it, it will pass through now to your broadcast as well as live streaming and your VOD on that. So now let's talk about one of our next features, our custom fields. So we've already had some custom fields already in Cablecast, but what we've done is we've improved our custom field functionality. So let's go and talk about our captioning. To get to that, we're going to go to Settings over here on the left-hand side. We're going to click on Location Settings. And then under our Shows tab, we have an option right here for custom fields. So before, you would just be able to put like a field in there with the title, and then you'd add in your own information in there. We've improved these drastically with having values added to the different types of custom fields that you want. So we have different things like, as you can see with some of the other custom fields that we already have in here, things like a list, we have text, we also have files that we can now import and add to a specific show record. Basically, that added an improvement to the ancillary files that we already had in our show records. This is improving it quite drastically. So let's go and create a new field so we can kind of talk about the different field options that we have. So I'm going to click on a new custom field here. And let's just say this is my custom field is what we're going to name it. And then we have our different types in here. We've got a couple different lists. I'll kind of explain each one of these as we go. So a text field is basically going to allow you to add in any sort of text in there. So if you wanted to put in some sort of reference information or whatever it may be in there, we have two different input values for that. We can either do like a single line of input for a custom text field, or we also can put in a multi-line input, depending on the amount of information you want to put into the show record in that specific field. Now, all of these custom fields will now appear in those show records, so you can add specific details to your show record that you wouldn't be able to use or wouldn't be able to add in there in previous versions where it was very limited. Things with lists, we can add a specific list in here so we can assign different things. So if you have, in addition to like using your category field, if you wanted to have multiple options for your categories, you can now create a different options and create a list that then will be able to look down a drop-down menu of all the different lists that you can add and select the one that you want. We also have a date where you'll be able to put in a specific date into your show record in that custom field. This allows you to put like a production date, an air date, or even a kill date or something along those lines on those specific show records. So it allows you to kind of customize that. We also have a number where basically that just allows you to put in a numeric value into your show record, into that field. And this would be great for some of our customers that are still using Facile to do their own kind of digital file management in that way. They can now put in that Facile information in there rather than using something like the local ID field or something along those lines. So it just adds another variable that you can do. One of the ones that we're really excited about is a file. And this will allow you to attach specific files to your show records. For example, in your meeting situation, you might have an agenda, or you might have the minutes from a meeting or something along those lines, and you'll be able to add those in there, and those can be integrated via your public site and things like that, which I'll show you on later on, of how you can integrate a digital file into your VOD content using like the public site. And then also we have another field for like producer, and this allows you to add a specific producer role to different people. So like if you wanted to, right now we only have one producer field, and that'd be like your producer or your content creator. But if you want to add like your camera operator, or if you want to add your tech director or your cast and your crew and all that stuff, you can now add multiple producer fields into your custom fields and have a way of adding those in. So those are the different fields that we can do in creating a different custom fields. Now, how can they be used is kind of the big thing. It's like we already had custom fields, but what improvements has 6.4 allowed us to do with these new custom fields? Well, there's three different areas that we can actually utilize the custom field options that we've added in there. The first is going to be with our advanced searching capabilities. So let's go into our schedule here as an example. We're going to go to our advanced searching over here, where you're going to be able to add an individual filter. If it's going to load up, I guess our schedule is pretty packed up here. So we're going to add a new filter, and all of those new custom fields that we've added in here are going to allow us to search by those custom fields as well. So for example, some customers might have paid programming, and they might want to be able to find all the programs that are paid programming or non-paid programming. So for example, we can search by all of our stuff that has paid programming, and we can use a yes or no option for that. So if I wanted to find all of my paid programming, I can search for that, and it's going to populate my search in accordance with that custom field that we've added into our show records. So it's a really nice feature. So if you're doing specific things or adding specific things into your scheduling, it'll allow you to search for those specific items by those custom fields that you didn't have the option to be hyper specific with the previous versions. One of the other features, or a way that the custom fields are integrated into Cablecast 6.4, is with our reporting functionality. So to go to our reporting, that's under our tools setting here. So I'm going to go to tools. I'm going to choose our reporting, and we have our two different report options. Our schedule report is going to give you all your playback data. Your shows report is basically going to tell you how many show records you've created during a period of time. But for example, we're going to use our schedule report, which is going to tell us all of our run details. Now, with all of our custom fields, those are now options that we can have breakdowns of for different information. So if I wanted to use my paid programming as an option in there, I can use that, set it for a specific date range that I want. I can view my report. It's going to give me my totals information in here, just like before. It's going to give me my first run detail. And then if I click on my paid programming, it's also going to give me information about that. So how much programming has played during that time that did not have that paid programming checkbox as yes, and how much of it did have programming that was yes. No value is going to be basically any of the show records that just did not use that specific field, or you just not put anything in there. You did not put a yes or a no information into that data field. But then here, it's going to give us all of our breakdowns on that specifically. So if I wanted to see all of my paid programming and details on that, I've got all my run details on this. I've also got in here, it's going to tell me all my yes that was paid programming, all the different show IDs, how often they played, and then it's also going to give me the specific run details. So like our Fix It Portland was played 43 times on Channel 5 and things like that. So that will allow you to really be hyper specific with your reporting functionality as well, and give you a lot more options for getting the data that you actually want to be able to pull out of your information. All of those custom fields options will also be available if you were to export out your reporting into a CSV document. That CSV document is basically a spreadsheet document that you'd be able to import into something like Excel or into Google or something along those lines. And then you'll be able to have all of that information where you can manipulate the data yourselves through a spreadsheet in there. Now, the last option that we have is with our public site, integrating all those custom fields into our public site. So if a lot of you are utilizing that public site already, some of the things have changed with our public site and the customization, as well as some of the features that we can add into that. So let's talk about creating a new public or editing our public site. So to go to your public site, we're going to go to our settings over on the left-hand side. We're going to go to system settings. We're going to go to channels because each one of our channels that we have set up with our system already has custom or has a public site created for it. So let's say we're going to go to our CTN Fit 5. We're going to go in there. The customization for our public site has changed a little bit. Before, it was just one big giant list that you'd be able to add in all your different values and things like that. We've added it and broken it down by different tabs in here. So all of our header information is done here where we can put in a name, our logo, our social media logos there. We can go to our colors. So if we want to adjust the different color options for our different channels. Our homepage is where we can set up our galleries and our slideshow search as well. And those galleries and slideshows are delineated by our different save searches that we've created. If you have questions specifically about customizing your galleries and things like that, we just released a video talking about the customization of the public site, and that is available on our website as well as on our YouTube channel. And I'd highly encourage you to read through that or watch that video. And it talks about how the save searches and the galleries work with that specifically. Now, where it's changed with our custom fields are specific show fields options. So with our show fields, we can add in all of those different custom fields. This is what will actually be showing up under the playlist or under that thumbnail of the image. Before, it was just a generic default of title, run length, category, different things like that. But now we can be very specific on what information or details we actually want to add into that public site for each of those different individual ones. So for example, we have our description, which is going to be our comments field. We've got our length, which is our total runtime, for example. And then here, for example, we have our agenda. Now, let's say you do have that city council meeting and you wanted to have it add in the agenda, have that be a link for people to either download the agenda while they're watching the VOD file, or also what we can do is we can embed now a PDF version of that agenda that will actually be viewed right next to our VOD file. And I'll show you that here in just a second as an example. If you're wanting to embed a agenda or embed some sort of file, it has to be a PDF. That's just what we're doing, is we're doing a PDF viewer in our software on our public site. So if you're wanting something to display next to it, either your minutes or, like I said, an agenda or something along those lines, you're going to be adding that as a PDF, as the actual file, and you can either have it be embedded or an actual link so people can download it. So what will those different fields look like? So if I go to this tab here, which I've already got open for us, this is how it will now integrate. So here we have our VOD of a different city council meeting. We can actually watch through that if I wanted to, jump to our different details and areas. It's going to have all those different custom fields over here on the right-hand side. So we have our description, we have our length, we have the link that we can download our PDF of our agenda, as well as here is our embedded image of our agenda. So this is now a nice new feature, and this is going to be very similar to some of our competitors that do some live streaming and video on demand integration. It's falling along the same lines as some of that integration that we have. Now, if you have chapters in your VOD file, you'll be able to add in your different chapter markers. And if you have those lining up with specific dates and times of all your different meeting agenda items, you can jump to those specific areas on your VOD file and be able to have them line up. So that's a really nice way to integrate some of that information, like your agenda, your meetings, minutes, things like that, as well as customizing what is being displayed for each one of your specific shows that you create and are displayed on your public site. All right, so now the last feature that I want to touch base on that we've added into 6.4 is our live chaptering option for video on demand files. So before, when you had video on demand, we've integrated our chaptering functionality within the software where you would have to wait for the file to be completely done, processed, and everything before you can actually add in all your chapter markers. So it was kind of a cumbersome process of getting it out there, then going back into it and creating your different chapters. Now what we can do is we can add those chapters on the fly as the production is going on. So as if you're doing a city council meeting, you'll be able to sit and actually add in all your different chapter markers while the meeting is in progress so that you know the actual time spot of those different meetings. So creating a VOD file with your live meeting, you would create a show record, just like how you would normally do. And as it be a live meeting or something like that, along those lines, you would need to check your VOD file or the VOD check mark. So if we were to go and create just a quick show record or just being able to see that, let's say my live meeting, just like what you would do normally, we'd set our format to, let's say we're coming from the studio and it's going to be an hour-long meeting, something along those lines. You'd have to always make sure that you remember to click on your VOD enable button. So what this will do is it'll save it. It's a live meeting, but then it tells the system that it's in the waiting phase, waiting for that digital file. So when we want to go and add these live chapters in, we can go into our internet video option, which is already over there with your previous version. But we have our three options of seeing all of our live streaming. We can look at our VOD. And now we have a third option for chaptering a live event. If I click on that, it's going to list all of the live events that we have that have not aired yet, that do not have that show or that VOD file in there. So we can look at all of our different ones that are basically created but don't have the VOD with them yet. And they're all in here available for us to add chapter markers to. If you did schedule this in the future or anything like that, it'll give you your date and time of when that program is scheduled on your channel. But here, let's say we want to go into my Ryan's live meeting demo that I added in here, and I want to chapter that. Some of the new functionality that we have is we have two different options to be able to chapter this in advance or while it's going live. Chaptering in person is going to be if you actually have your cable operator sitting at City Hall while the meeting is going on, and they're watching the meeting in live real time in the facility, and they can sit there and add all the different chapter markers as they go on. Chaptering with a live stream is if you had like your master control operator back at your head end, and they were watching the live stream and being able to mark your chapters that way, where they're not actually there physically in person, and they can actually watch the live stream and add in your chapters. So for example, if we're wanting to watch in chapter, like for this example, let's say we're actually there, we're going to choose our chaptering option in person. But before we do that, you'll see that now we have this list over here on the right-hand side of our agenda. So what we can do is if we already have our meeting agenda already in place, what we can do is we can pre-create all of those different chapter markers that we want. We don't know what the timestamp is for them, any of them yet, but at least what we can do is we can create all these. So then when we're actually going in person, we're going to click on this mark button, which I'll show you here in just a minute, and you'll be able to actually mark at that time in real time. So you can go and work ahead of time before the meeting actually happens with all of your things. So if I wanted to add a new chapter, let's say adjournment. So I could go in and say, I want to add our meeting adjourn, hit enter, and there is our new agenda item that we can then chapter. So let's say we're actually there in person. I'm going to say we're chaptering in person. We get a countdown or a live time clock right here. If we actually scheduled this time clock would be in association with when that program started airing out on your channel. But because for our demo purposes, we don't actually have it going out live right now. It's just basically saying that we're starting from the beginning. But that clock will match up to whenever you actually scheduled that. So being we have that, let's say our call to order is right here. All I need to do is, being we're at that 29 or 30 second mark, I can click on mark, and now I've marked that specific time on that chapter. It removes itself from the agenda because I've already marked that. It's now in my chapters, which we'll talk about a little bit more in just a second. But then I can continually go on as I'm watching the actual meeting itself and mark all of my different times in here. So we can go in here, new business. Oh, at the 1 minute mark, we're now at our old business. We can go there. And then, of course, our meeting ends at the history's shortest city council meeting at 1:08. There, I've added it. Now I've gone and ended my chaptering. Now, when I've done that, I've added all those chapter markers, but I haven't actually officially published those yet. So what I can do to actually activate those different chapters is I now need to go into my chaptering information over here in my chaptering tab. We can look here if I need to make any adjustments. Let's say I made an adjustment, said, oops, I actually did this one late. I need to shift this to actually the 50-second mark or something along those lines. I can actually go in here, adjust my time, and say this was actually at the 50-second mark rather than the 52. It's going to ask me if I want to shift and adjust all my subsequent chapter markers after that if I don't want to, but I'm just going to do it for this specific one. So I can make all those adjustments if I need to fine tune this a little bit more before I actually publish them. And all I need to do is hit publish now, and those chapters are now added into my VOD, where I'll be able to actually show them up as if they were in here in my chaptering data, and I'll be able to do that on my public site. Now, again, with our chaptering, very similar to what it was before, that hasn't changed. All of our chaptering data is done on a sidecar file, so there is no transcoding that needs to be done after you add your chaptering file or after you add all your chaptering data to any of your VOD files. It'll be automatically in there, so the next time someone calls up a file or a VOD file that has the chaptering data in it, it'll automatically be there. So there's no transcoding that needs to be done. If I wanted to go and continually do this, I can add more chapters. I can say, okay, we're going to say public comment again. I can also go and make annotations and notes on the different agenda items that I want. So I can go in here and say, okay, I put an operator note. This would be for that person to say, oops, I did this one 10 seconds late or something along those lines, so that you know you can make a note that you have to make an adjustment. 10 seconds late, let's say. Can mark that. And now in my chapters, I have a little note here that I can go and view and say, oh, 10 seconds late. I can go in, edit my time and say, adjust this to whenever it is I want in there. If I end my chaptering, edit, change that to 2:15 to whatever it was. There we are. And then when I hit publish, it'll be published and added in there. So those are some of the really nice features that have been added into 6.4 to be able to help speed up your day-to-day stuff, especially with adding live chapter markers, as well as customizing and being able to really improve and drastically update the way your VOD operation looks and your live streaming, in addition to captioning and things like that. So I guess at this point right now, we're going to open this up to any questions that we may have. Again, there's a field in your go to web or go to meeting field there that will allow you to add in any specific questions that you want. And we'll try to answer those as best we can. I will say, please note, or please add or direct your questions directly to some of the features that we've added in 6.4. If you have questions about other stuff, definitely reach out to support or sales or whatever it may be if there's something different. Before we go into that questioning, one thing that I do want to talk about is updating as well. So there is going to be a little bit of changes with the 6.4 updater. So if you do have live streaming and you do have a live streaming server, there are going to be some additional updates rather than just software that needs to be added and done to your server. So one thing specifically that I want to mention is that the 6.4 software is only going to be available for if you have a Cablecast Live server. If you have an SX Live model of server, the Cablecast 6.4 is not going to be able to work with that directly. You're going to need to have the new hardware. With that specifically, there is a driver update for the Blackmagic capture card for your live streamers that needs to be done. We weren't able to roll this into the actual Cablecast updater itself, into the software. This will have to be done specifically before you update your Cablecast software. If you were to run it and you didn't update your drivers for that Blackmagic video card on the actual Cablecast live streamers, it will prompt you, it'll stop the install and let you know that you have to. Whenever you do request your software update key, we are going to include a couple new articles from our knowledge base that will go over some of these specific things. In addition to the Blackmagic driver update on your live servers, there's going to be a very small portion of our customers that have the Cablecast live servers that will also need to perform a motherboard BIOS update as well. If you run your installer and it does talk about that, you'll be able to run that, and we're also going to be able to give you an article on the process of that, and support will be able to help you and assist with any questions that you may have. So there are going to be a couple customers that will need to also update the BIOS on their motherboard of their Cablecast Live 340s. With that too, you're also going to get a new updated article for our Cablecast updating guide with some new current pictures of our software. We improved this so that it's a more accurate versions of our software and views that you're going to see, and goes through basically the entire process of updating all of your software for your servers and your system with that. So again, with 6.4, you have to have a Cablecast Live. You cannot have an SX Live line of server. You can reach out and talk to either your sales staff or your support and we'll be able to confirm that for you. You're going to be needing to update your drivers for your your Blackmagic card on that live server, and some of you might have to also update your BIOS. If you just have VOD, you don't need to worry about any of those additional updates. This is only affecting our live streamers specifically.